Markets Now is brought to you by the 5-year anniversary of Brevant Seeds. Here's to 5 years of not just winning, but collecting one game-changing W after another. See all of our wins at Brevant.com/wins.
Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rourke with Tommy Grisafi of Nesvick Trading. Well, livestock to the plus side on Thursday. Grains mostly lower, but it was a quiet session. And let's pick this apart, Tommy. First of all, soybeans drifting just a bit. Okay, we ran up into some chart resistance. That was part of it. But we only got about 5 million bushels of China business confirmed. Was the market disappointed with that?
I think so. You can't forget that South America is they're getting ready to grow another monster crop. So we had this business from China. It was great. We had the beans to sell them. Great. We're selling them the 12. I don't know about this 25 every year for 3 years. My sources say it's not going to happen. We yeah, what the administration says and what China does are two different things. So taking it day by day, let's go with what we know. Demand's phenomenal in corn, demand's okay in beans. And yes, we hit those resistance lines. Looking at the 50, 100, 200-day moving average right now, those are keeping soybeans locked. Soybeans start off, you wake up in the morning, you say, oh, soybeans are up 8, it's going to be a good day. And often you see them only up a little or down. So they are being sold on rallies. I'd imagine you're starting to see South American hedging hitting that March and May contract, Michelle.
Yeah, and it looks like they're getting fairly decent weather except for parts of Argentina. So that's going to be the thing we're going to be watching after we get done with the report, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. And it's a big area. When you put the United States inside of Brazil, I mean, these are not small little countries. And so there's always a problem somewhere. I would love to have a South American weather market and get our markets propped up and get some good hedges or sales on for 2026. But right now, it's not only us who are selling crops below our cost production, but other countries around the world are going to be leaking out this grain. And you know how they do it in South America. A lot of it goes to town right at harvest, and they're going to need the cash flow just like everyone else. They're dealing with high expenses. So it's interesting economics in agriculture in both South America and Northern America.
Grains also no doubtedly positioning ahead of the big reports coming up on Monday. So let's talk about yield will be the focus. What's kind of programmed in here already in terms of yield cuts, do you think?
I think if corn yields just go down a little, I don't think you'll see much of a positive reaction. You could see a negative reaction. I'd love to see a 4 or 5 bushels come off the corn, get a nice healthy rally. We know we have nice demand under the corn market. Let's talk about the negative side. We're supposed to stay fair and balanced as commodity brokers and analysts, right? If we have a negative number, I think you'll see it well supported and it will help the export program. There are a whole bunch of people who would love to buy corn 15, 20 lower. So if we go down in the futures, I'm not so sure the cash market will break so much. Now let's flip it the other side. If we have an explosion in the futures, say we trade limit up, say we trade up 25 cents in corn, which is very possible. It's happened before. It could happen again. We may not be up 25 cents that day in the cash market. So you may see a plus 25 board, and all of a sudden you look at your phone and you say, oh, the cash markets are only up 15 cents. So as markets go up, they tend to pull back that cash level. As markets go down, farmers say, you know what, I'm not selling at this level, and they get tighter with the cash, and then they have to incentivize them and raise that basis. So the basis has been getting a lot of the work done. Any clients I know who've recently sold grain the last few days, it's because they got a bump in basis, and we can take care of the futures or buying back the upside on my end, Michelle.
The offset, though, even if you get a 3-4 bushel yield cut, is you could see an adjustment on demand, including feed and residual. There's a lot of slush room there, I'll call it, right?
Yeah, yep. I always hear Chip Flory talk about it, or yourself, or any of the folks. That's that magic number that they can go back forth. One thing we know, there's 1 million cattle missing coming up from Mexico. Those are 1 million cattle here in the last 10, 11 months that did not eat American corn. Now, maybe we're taking that corn and shipping it to Mexico. Mexico's been a big buyer of American corn. But when you look at that cash market, north versus south, everything else in cattle, you could just definitely see there are, I don't want to say there's no cattle down there. There's a limited amount of supply of cattle in Texas, and that's very much hurting the people. What do you do if you're a feedlot right now in Texas, Michelle?
So do you think on Monday we'll get something either bullish or bearish that will pop corn out of this sideways trading range? Because we've been coiling for quite a while.
Popcorn, no pun intended. I would love to see that. As a commodity broker, I would love to see volatility. I wouldn't be upset if we went down hard and created demand. I would love to see us move out of that range. To your point, we're just coiling and coiling and coiling, and we're just condensing. Same thing can happen in beans, though. We've spent several weeks in beans just kind of about the same price. We went up real high, we came down, we're right in the middle. I would love to see beans pop out and get above those moving averages you talked about earlier. So, what's our advice to farmers and people out there listening to this? Get some orders in there. If you want some dream orders, get them offered 10, 15, 20 higher in corn. You may get them. And if it's an HTA, we may only trade there briefly. Oftentimes, with this high frequency trading, we could have a spike up or a spike down on the initial number. Maybe they drop the yield, but they add more acres or something. So the computers read one headline and they get a little volatile. Personally, I'll go on this report flat. And like a friend of mine said, who was a very successful grain trader, you want to trade with the people messed up, not be the people messed up going into a USDA report. Note, the USDA was closed for over 45 days. I'm not so sure how pure this data is, Michelle. What do you think?
Yeah, there's going to be questions of now and after the report about the accuracy. There's no doubt.
It's like
What
betting
about,
on a game. If the refs don't go
yeah,
your way, you're going to have to say something about it, right?
yeah, I gotcha. The soybean market or soybean production and yield estimates, what do you think? Even if we get a small cut in soybean yield, what does USDA do to export demand? Because it's running, as you said, behind last year.
Yeah, that's their wiggle room on that end, right? So if yield goes down a bushel, they could say, that's right, you weren't going to sell that anyway, and we could be right to where we are. Looking at the markets, yeah, we could talk about corn and beans, what we think. Who knows, Michelle? The surprise may be in wheat, right? I don't know, but anything I've seen, we don't seem to be running out of wheat. That's why it's in the lower fives, and some of the cash markets are in the four. Brings up the planting intentions. Who's going to plant wheat next year? And so let's get past this report. If we can get past the January report, next thing we're talking about is planting intentions, and we're talking about that corn, bean, wheat rotation going on into 26 and getting some crop insurance. Once we have that crop insurance, we can truly help people manage the risk a lot better. Folks are leaning very hard on crop insurance, and I have no reason to tell them not to do that.
So since you brought up the winter wheat seedings, expectations or trade guesses are what, 900,000 acres less than last year. That actually seems a little low to me. Don't you think it's going to be less acres planted than that?
The price is punishing them. Wheat growers are being punished with these low prices. They're being asked politely losing money to go plant something else. Now, what those acres go into, it'll be interesting. But if we're going to plant less wheat, it would make me think we're going to plant more corn in 26 or some other crop. So we'll see how that rotates out. But very, very tough for the wheat growers. And even with the government sending this money that should start rolling out in the next 6 weeks, it's just not going to be enough, Michelle. The economic heartache in the heartland's very real.
Do you think the wheat market needs to be putting in any risk premium, either weather-wise or geopolitical-wise? Because right now you look at crop ratings state by state, and they do look lower than when we went into dormancy last fall.
Yeah, that's a great point. It would be no problem at all to add 50 cents to the wheat market. If you look at a monthly chart, it would barely look like it went up, right? If you look at a hourly, it's going to look like a big deal. It would be great to see some wheat premium. We're trying to end this Ukraine war. We're not getting, we talk about it, but it's not really happening. And they still seem to be fighting a lot of the solving the Ukraine war with Putin and Zelensky. That's all changed to, hey, we're taking oil out of Venezuela and welcome to Greenland, people. We're now moving on to Greenland. So don't forget, Russia is still invading Ukraine, and that adds tension in the wheat market, and it just adds an overall strain to world markets.
We also had index fund rebalancing that started today. It lasts, 5 days? What impact could it have, or is it having on the market?
You can see it in the corn. It's giving corn a nice little bid. When soybeans sold off here today, this afternoon, corn was actually still up on the day. And that's the index funds buying, call it 10,000 futures a day. That's a healthy amount. That's going to get us up a few pennies. And it's not going to move us $1. probably won't even move us a dime, but it's a healthy amount to buy, enough that if you see corn down 2 or 3, there's a chance you could sell it unchanged on day, something like a trader like myself might do, just knowing you got the index fund bids to lean on.
We also have the Supreme Court that's going to provide its ruling on the IEEPA tariffs tomorrow. What impact do you think that it could have on this market?
Oh, great point, Michelle. Glad you brought that up. Supreme Court rulings could be a real big deal. And anything that's been tariffed hard, if they say, you know what, you can't do that. But it's not just what they say. If they say like, oh, all the money you collected before, that's fine. But moving forward, it's big because Trump brags so often about how we're collecting all this money. If you notice one thing out of the Trump administration, they've moved very fast the last 6-8 weeks to try to get deals done with people or try to pretend we got deals done with people. So if you watch Ag Secretary Rollins, she's like, we got a great deal done with Japan. We got a great deal done with China. We got a great deal done with this one. And all that's really happening, if you could read between the lines and in all the bright lights of the TV, is that all the countries agreed to buy what they normally buy. The whole thing is, it looks like a card trick to me, Michelle. So yes, we're getting deals done and just in time, because if you look at the betting markets say there's about a 75% chance that the Supreme Court may rule against President Trump, but be fun to watch this here in 24 hours and see what they do.
Yeah, the betting markets, those are the poly markets?
Correct. Yeah, there's it's a whole new world. You know, the CME Group is now partnered with one of these betting markets. And so I used to get really offended when people would call the CME Group a casino. Well, hell with it. They're a casino now. I mean, when the CME Group is partnered up with FanDuel, I believe, and actually the clearing firm I use is the partnership there, Plus 500. Shout out to those good folks. But CME chose Plus 500 and FanDuel to do stuff. So you could be long corn, short the Bears. You can get long IU, short soybeans, 2-to-1 ratio. I mean, this stuff's coming down the pipe.
And the cattle market, two-sided on Thursday, but ultimately ended higher. And that market has really been led by strong cash, and the feeders are the leaders, right?
You said it so well. Feeders are the leader. And when you look at the cash market and what's happening here in January cash isn't that far from all-time highs. As screwworm moves closer north, there is no indication that border's opening anytime soon. Matter of fact, our border may not open, but we may have screwworm here sooner than we think. Remember when they said if it just gets cold, we'll be able to open that border? Well, folks, it's cold and there's no border open. So the fundamentals, regardless of what the president said, regardless of buying 4 times as much from this country or anything else, the American stock markets are on fire. There's a wealth creation happening. Gold and silver, copper, platinum, palladium all made new time highs. The stock market in Venezuela exploded on the relief that there could be more of a free market. And with that, look at the food pyramid. RFK Jr., Secretary of is it Health, right?
Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Michelle. Health and Human Services. RFK, he flipped that pyramid upside down, turned that smile upside down. Cattle are on top of that pyramid. Michelle, back to you.
All right. Thanks so much. That's Tommy Grisafi with Nesvick Trading and Markets Now.
You were right.
You were right.
You were right.
Well, you were right. When you choose your seed brand, there's winning, and then there's...
You were right. Should have gone with Brevant seeds.
When you choose Brevant seeds, you don't just win. You get to be right. Don't just win. Win. Talk with your retailer or visit Brevant.com/win to get started.